Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another in our series of conversations on Sikh Studies. And today we have a real treat. We have Professor Inderjit N Kaur from the University of Michigan, an ethnomusicologist who works on a variety of things, including Sikh music and kirtan. And I think we're all going to be very interested in what she does and also what's going on at Michigan. We need to have a report from that part of the world. And she's, living proof that Sikh Studies is so diverse and so full of so many different aspects. So Inderjit, it's a real treat to have you here. And as I always begin, just saying a word for people who may not have tuned in before, that this series is in honor of my good friend, Narendra Singh Kapani, who unfortunately died just shortly before we started this webinar series. And he asked me to moderate it because he and I had been involved in a conference, I think in 1976. Now, the book published as a result of that, Sikh Studies, was in 1979, but it took a while for the book to get out. So I think it was the conference we had was in 76, as I recall. And it was the first conference in the United States, although I know there were other conferences in UK earlier devoted to Sikh Studies. And the idea was to figure out what was going on in the field. And he said, the time has come to do it again. Let's do it through a series of conversations. And so that's how all of this came about. And that's why I'm here. And that's why you're here, Inderjit, as someone that Narendra especially wanted to contribute to our discussion on Sikh Studies. So welcome. So it's just delightful to see you. And are you in Michigan right now?
That's right, I am, and I'm a little bit envious of the warmer weather in California.
Well, it certainly is that. As you see, I'm wearing my polo shirt and kind of surviving. So tell me a little bit about, I know there's several people who teach, Mandar, for example, has been part of the conference at Riverside this weekend that I've been in and out of. Bashara Singh has been hosting a conference on Sikh Studies, and so we know that he's there, and so you have like a circle of people who do Sikh Studies at Michigan.
So Mark, let me first just say a word to thank the Sikh Foundation for this opportunity, for this conversation. For decades, the Sikh Foundation has been diligently working in the area of promoting Sikhism. And in the last couple of decades, the dynamism that Sonia Dhami, for example, brought in was just delightful. And I want to thank Tanveer Gujral for all her work in organizing this. And thank you for hosting this. And thank you to the community for joining us today. The community is a very essential and critical part of both my coming into this field and how I do this. So I want to just start by acknowledging all this and thanking everybody, especially for being here with us today. So here in Michigan, I joined Michigan just 3 years ago. This is my third year. And soon after, just as I was beginning to connect with students and with the community and faculty, the pandemic started. And, so that put all these social restrictions. So I am, working with my ideas and goals and thinking about, the kinds of things I want to bring to Michigan. And as soon as these restrictions are lifted, my first task really is to connect with the students and with the community, the Sikh community, because their ideas, their aspirations are critical. And while we don't have a huge community in Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus is located, there are nearby townships, for example, Canton, and there are several gurdwaras around Michigan. So that would be my goal. I am really keen to develop research projects that work across the divide. And here by the divide, I mean not only Sikh studies versus others, not only disciplinary divides, but also the West and non-West divide, the student, faculty, staff divide, the town gown divide, because I truly believe that all these different constituencies have really, very important knowledge to bring. That's really essential for our understanding of Sikhi and how we want to shape Sikh studies. So I really want to work with outreach, with interdisciplinarity, and with relationality. I think isolationism would not work. And it's so important to understand that Sikh studies, whether it is one person at a university or two or three, and at Michigan currently we are three. There is someone who teaches the Punjabi language, that we must understand our relationship and our relationality with other fields and other people and cultures.
Now, when you came into this position, I assume they knew what they were getting, that they knew that you were an accomplished scholar in ethnomusicology, but also with an interest in Sikh music. But was that were they particularly looking for that, or it just happened to be the case?
The Department of Musicology was not particularly looking for that. They were just looking for an ethnomusicologist who would, whose work they had good regard for, who they saw as a good teacher, and who would fit into the department, the usual criteria that a department has in a search. So really, my doing Sikh Kirtan itself had nothing to do with my hire. But my work itself is on Sikh Kirtan primarily.
Sure.
So, whatever I do, whatever its quality is, it does connect with Sikh studies in that way. So I was not a hire of quote unquote Sikh studies, if that is the question. I'm hired as an ethnomusicologist, and my work really is judged not only in terms of what I contribute to Sikh studies, but to the larger field of ethnomusicology.
Yeah, well, this actually contributes to a conversation we were having yesterday at the Riverside conference over kind of the developing of the field. And, for a time, we focused on trying to create positions, endowed chairs in Sikh studies. And that was partly because if we didn't have endowed chairs, there wouldn't be anybody doing Sikh studies. So it was a way of making sure that the field was represented. But increasingly, there are just so many good scholars like yourself who just happen to be, from a Punjabi background, and you happen to be interested in Sikh stuff. and so you bring that with you to the position. And so increasingly, the field is growing really the way it should. That is, with the kind of academic acceptance that is a part of the regular order of academic life. It's just something that everybody should know about and everybody should understand. So this doesn't diminish the need for endowed chairs and the desire to have them. They can be very useful, particularly to give an anchor for Sikh studies and in particular locales. But it also means that the field now is growing in some very impressive ways that is beyond simply that stage of development. I'm kind of getting my head of myself, because that's the kind of conversation we have later on in this conversation where we talk about the field of Sikh studies as a whole. But it just brought to mind those things that we've been talking about. So tell me that you've been teaching online. Since you came, you really haven't had in-person classes, right?
No, the first let's see, 3 semesters. So I've taught for 6 semesters now, out of which, half have been online. So I did start, with the traditional in-person teaching. And, it takes a while to settle into a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's been wonderful. I teach classes in South Asian music, Indian classical music, Bollywood song and dance. And then I teach, theoretical courses on my, areas of research, such as affect studies, sensory sound studies. So the way I incorporate, Sikh themes into my course is through these courses, and very organically, again, in relationship to larger conversations. So I'm very much, and what you said about this way of developing the field where, a university does not say, well, here somebody gave me money, so I will hire a Sikh scholar, but rather more organically that, okay, in this field, I see the scholar and well, if they're doing Sikh studies, that's great.
And Ann Arbor is such a beautiful campus. You're really very lucky to be there. And it has such a great tradition, ethnomusicology. So for both of those reasons, you must feel right at home. Although, as you say, coming any place new takes a little time to develop. So what kind of students do you have? You say there's not that huge a Punjabi community in Ann Arbor, but in surrounding areas of Michigan. So are your students largely Sikh or non-Sikh?
Oh, large, I rarely have a Sikh student. Yeah. I think that's fine. I think as I develop courses, for example, I'm thinking of developing a course called Music and Religion. And I could do music and religion in South Asia, or I could just pitch it more widely. I think the latter. Then I might have some students, but I feel, that there are so many different ways to connect with the students. It does not have to be in the classroom. And again, once I get to know the students here, I will have a better sense of what they want. And if there are certain courses they want, for example, a course on Shabbat Kirtan, I would love to do that. So I still have to figure it out. But whoever is the audience, I think the knowledge of Sikhi and Sikh culture is for the Sikh community, but also very importantly for everyone else. And that is also so important coming back to the Sikh community, right? The lack of information about the Sikh community in the wider world has been a problem. And even for things like Islamophobia, not understanding our culture, what we stand for. So I feel actually just great that whenever I bring in something from the Sikh culture to this wider audience, I feel I'm doing, essential work, important work.
Indeed, you are. And as you said, religion and music are so intertwined. You can't think of one without the other. As much as we might like Bach, for example, to think of Bach outside of the cultural religious context in which he created his beautiful cantatas, his wonderful works, is hard to imagine. And in the Sikh tradition, you can't see an old painting of Guru Nanak without the musician at his side, to remind you that the Guru Granth Sahib was always sung. It was meant to be sung. And how important is that, do you think? How important is it to remind ourselves, or to constantly be aware of, and to revisit the fact that the musical part of the kirtan is an essential part of it?
Right. I think it's critical to study something devoid of its mode of transmission. Would be incomplete, really, because in communication, what is relevant is not just the words, but how those words are said, right? We know that of our speech. And so for song also, it's critically important. And it's critically important in song because there is rhyme and rhythm in song, there's prosody. And for that prosody to be communicated, to be enlivened, that rhyme and rhythm to come forth, we need the music. And so we need to understand what the music is doing in that sphere. Another really important aspect of this is affect. And by affect, I mean something that moves us. So, we often say, I'm moved by Kirtan or I'm moved by music. Yeah. And so I'm affected. That's the terminology that scholars use, is affect. And it relates to emotion. When we are moved, our affect quickly moves in the direction of an emotion, depending on the situation that we are in. So if we are very happy, we can be moved into exuberance. If we are sad, we can be moved into, those sort of feelings. And so music brings that affect. It adds that affective quality to the words. And so this study of the music and its affective capabilities is essential. So I do believe that musicological study of Guru Granth Sahib is critical, and there is so much to be done. I want to invite more and more people to join the study of Sikh Kirtan, students and scholars, because there is so much work to be done in this sphere.
Well, this conversation may excite people. Who knows? They may do the trick. I have a lot of questions I want to continue asking them, but other people may have them also. And our format is, if you have questions, if you're watching this live, if you have a question, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can ask a question, and then a little bit later, when we have time, I'll try to ask as many of those questions as possible. But for right now, I have my own. I have a bunch of other ones, including the whole issue of, it's been 500 years. How do you know the way that it was originally done? How do we recover the music of Guru Nanak's time or early Sikh history? How do you know that what you're singing is authentic to 500 years, or do you?
This is a great question, and this question of the original music or the authentic music is a question that really, I would say, troubles many cultures and traditions. And scholars have talked a lot about this. And I've myself written on authenticity of Sikh Shabbat Kirtan. And really, to answer your question, before I elaborate on it, there is no way to know exactly what the musical sound was like, starting off with Guru Nanak and coming forward. Musicians, we have some musicians who trace their lineage back to the Guru's times, and we should accept, their connection going back. But one thing scholars have seen in their study, and we can even prove for the time period that we have recordings, that musicians and the way they sing and the way the lineage continues, there's always change. Change is an essential part of tradition. A static tradition would die. Only when there is change, when it goes forward in time and space, as things change, as the human sensorium changes, the way we sense things, the way we live, our aesthetics, all that changes, and musicians change with that. And so I think this question of the need to exactly know how the musical sound was at that time, I don't think it's that important. What is really important is that we have musicological means that communicate what we believe through our study of the Guru Granth Sahib, the scriptures and writings, and through what the Sangat also has lineage, you know, the Sangat has understanding through these centuries and decades, that the message of the Guru is being transmitted, that the poetry is coming alive, that affect is coming through, the devotion is coming through, the connection with the divine is coming through. And as long as all that is happening, I think we can leave aside this worry, that we need to somehow recover that original sound. I think it is not possible and it is not necessary. And I don't think that such an enterprise is even beneficial, because we are not wearing the clothes the Guru wore, the footwear, we are not sleeping in the same kind of bed, we don't have the same kind of house, we don't travel in the same modes of communication, we're not eating the same foods, our environment, everything has changed, our bodies have changed, our sensoria has changed. So I think, even if we look at the musical aspects of what the gurus did, each guru was adding new modes of singing, new forms of singing, new instruments. So the gurus were innovators, they knew that this kind of change is key. And so even if we want to follow, say that, okay, we want to follow the guru is saying, yes, go forward, don't be static. And what is key is that connection with the divine. So in my article that in which I address these debates, because there are some musicians and scholars, and perhaps following them, even some community members who are saying that, okay, this is the only authentic way to sing, I know it, and I will tell you, and if you don't do it, it's incorrect or ineffective. So I've written an article, and in that I propose the phrase, multiple authenticities in motion. Multiple authenticities in motion, saying that the way to feel authentic Kirtan is different depending on our context, and that this is changing, it's fluid. And for this, I really talked with many, many diverse community members, Sangat, the worshippers, the program managers at Gurdwara, and musicians, of course, Kirtankar. And they all had different ways of thinking about authenticity. Some said authentic Kirtan is sincere Kirtan, where we are sincerely connecting with the Guru, rather than in the musical sound per se. So I think we need not get too fixated on the musical sound, the structure, the grammar of the music itself. Though, of course, there's a spectrum, there's a limit to the kinds that would be suitable, but there is a wide spectrum.
Well, that's exactly what I want to push you about. I mean, if we take, the implication of what you say, then any kind of true expression can be legitimate. What if some young guys came to you and said, we want to do like a rap version of Kirtan, we want to do a hip hop version? What would you say to that?
So actually, that has been done already.
Oh, oh okay.
And even, more than 10 years ago, there's a Ragi in Australia by Daya Singh, who's been doing Terasab in the rap style.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, and if we talk about hip hop, and talk about sort of the real the origins of hip hop as something that came from these people who wanted to tell about their story about their socioeconomic plight and wanted to talk about justice, and it was a way of protest, then I think it is completely suitable with Guru Nanak's project, which was about social justice. And so we link with hip hop as a genre for social justice, it completely links with the Guru's project. So, how it is done, the details of it matter, right? And again, musical sound is embedded in so much else, right? It is created by people, they wear certain clothes, they have certain comportment, there is a context in which that performance takes place, all those are relevant. So we would need to go and be, be sensitive about all those aspects, right? And the meaning that we derive from musical sound is through its associations and the lyrics that are there. So all that would need to be carefully, thought out. But definitely, I would be totally open, and I hope, in fact, that we might one day at Michigan have a group. I'm hoping for ensembles, so we might have a group where we have Sikhs and non-Sikhs, and we have some version of hip hop or rap where we, beautifully convey the message of the Guru. And I think here I would like to mention one thing: the Bani itself, the word itself, is extremely important. The kirtan is singing of is imbuing the tan, the body, with the kirat, the praise of the divine. And so we could do it in many ways, but that word, that Bani, should be clear. It should come out well. And so that would be one of the main criteria there.
So now, is there a kind of dominant style if you go from Gurwar to Gurwar to place to Gurwar, from place to place? You hear the same kind of style, and how did that come about?
Yes, so that's a great question. Thank you. The dominant style right now is what is called the light style. So if when I talk to kirtankars, kirtankar, kirtaniye, they will say there is a classical style, there is a light style, and then there is another. Perhaps we could. I see it as a third category, which is that from the group called the Akhand Kirtan Jatha, and it is known as AKJ, and they have a very particular style of intensification of the feeling of devotion through the musical means, and it's really beautiful. So of all these three, I would say the light style is the dominant, the most popular. And then this AKJ, Akhand Kirtan style. And then we have the minority, which is the classical style. And of course, those who follow the classical style would like it to become more dominant. But, in all traditions, everywhere, the classical genre is always a minority. The popular genre is popular because people like it more, right? And so that is how it is in Sikh Kirtan itself. There are some commonalities and some differences in these, but in all of them, what the Sangat is looking for is how the Bani comes forth and reaches them, And so if we have time, I could play some samples. I've done so many presentations at various conferences. And so I have all these PowerPoints with different musical clips embedded in it to show these various aspects, these beautiful aspects of how in the different styles, there's different ways of presenting the Bani, and I could play some if we have time.
Well, if you want to do that now, we have some questions, but then as soon as maybe you could show us some of these styles, and then we'll come to the questions that we have. And that way there may be even more questions as a result.
Okay. So let me share screen. And what I'll do is I'll start with a small clip. So perhaps I'll go in the reverse order. And I will start with a small clip of the classical style. And this is an old recording, but it's a beautiful recording of Dr. Nivedita Singh, who's right now a faculty actually at Punjabi University, Patiala. And this is her young self singing very beautifully this Shabbat, Oha Prem Piri.
Wonderful. When you go and share screen, make sure you click that little button that says go through the computer. Make sure the sound quality is good.
Yes. Let me remind myself. Okay. Yes, I have share computer sound. And here she is. Then make it the slide. Oops. Okay. Let me go back to her. Okay. Do you see her?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to get her in. Yeah. Okay. So that, beautiful singing, and of course, I'm in touch with her. Her singing is even more beautiful now, and she's just done wonderful work in singing in this classical style. So next up, then let me play something from the light genre. And the light style really is very, very diverse. And I have to say, and actually, let me preface this with a little bit of my own background here, because that's relevant, I think. It might be relevant for questions also. So I grew up in a Sikh family singing kirtan. And I had musical training in Indian classical music, North Indian classical music. And so all growing up, I was singing kirtan in the classical style. And in fact, when I moved to the Bay Area, and here too, I would sing in the classical style, I was still thinking, why do people not sing in the classical style? Why do they like other styles? Because that was the most beautiful to me, and it is beautiful. And then as a scholar, I realized that I have to understand why different people like different styles. And so I had to open myself. I have to admit, I did not particularly enjoy, especially the AKJ, the Akhand Kirtani style that I will play for you. And so I had to sit there, open my senses, open my mind and heart, and say, okay, I'm going to enjoy with the Sangat and learn, and that really taught me so much, that empathetic listening and feeling, what the Sangat is feeling. And now I love all genres of Kirtan, all styles of Kirtan, because I'm looking for the right thing, I'm not, and I don't have a judgmental attitude. So anyway, and that's why when I'm presenting this, I'm so excited about all these styles. So let me now share one which is in the light style. This is Sant Anup Singh, who is really very popular. He has he does a lot of social service in the Punjab, and when he comes for tours, people just flock to his kirtan. And this I recorded in a home, a friend of mine, where the energy is just marvelous. One can feel the vibrations, the intense vibrations. So I'll play 2-3 little clips from my presentation, and the last will be the video. And because it's so crowded, I didn't have much space for my camera, so the angle is a little bit odd, but the kirtan is beautiful. So let me share that with you. Okay, and yeah, okay. So let me go into the slide mode. All right. So do you see that, Anup Singh and Mool Mantar? Yes. And so in this presentation, I was really talking about how the experience of time gets expanded, enlarged in Kirtan. And so I have these 2-3 clips that start with the Mool Mantra and go into the Shabbat and then go into improvisation. This is the particular style of Sant Anup Singh, which is beautiful, and how he invites the Sangat to join. And this participatory mode, which is not there as much in the classical style. You know, we saw that clip, that is more of a solo tradition. And this is more of a participatory tradition where there is call and response between the musician and the Sangat, and the Sangat participates, and that feeling of affect, that vibration, you know, that connection becomes very strong. So here we are with the Mool Mantra. And because, you know, my audiences are other ethnomusicologists and musicologists who don't understand, I translate a lot of this. Okay.
Ik oankar japo, ik
So this is the warming up, and then it moves on to this kind of further participation. So one can imagine being in a room and participating like this. And so it's, you know, it starts becoming more melodic. And here I just, if I may, play the Shabbat that he then sings. It's a beautiful Shabbat. Kar bandagi chhad main mera, hirday naam samar savera. And the beautiful message, and how, you know, note in the 2 melody lines, how the feeling of the Shabbat comes forth. It's a beautiful, beautiful composition. So, you know, that kar, you know, do it, you know, and that was what the gurus were about, do it, you know, and it's in the action. And just one more short clip where there is improvisation, and beautiful improvisation, again, to emphasize this theme of the Shabbat. And here you see the video of his ensemble and his young son sitting at the back, you know, learning by participating. so this is the light style. I don't know if you want me to wait, perhaps for the AKJ, the third style, which has a particular sequence, and that would take me also 3-4 minutes to, to show how that intensity is built up. So just a 30-second clip or 1-minute clip does not give us that sense of how it starts, how the flow goes, how it proceeds to really take us to this beautiful journey of connecting with Vaheguru.
Well, as you wish, we could take a couple questions and then end with the AKJ style.
Sure, yes.
There's a question about how did the Dhari Kiran start? And is its foundation from Gurbani, or is it more poetry? And would have been performed at the time of the gurus?
Yes, definitely performed at the time of the Guru. We can we can say that for certainty because we even have those genres, which is the Var genre, the ballads, listed in Guru Granth Sahib. So even the most popular Var Asaki that we are so familiar with, and there are 9 Var, and in fact those are the places where in the headings of those Shabbat, the Guru even tells us, which Dadi's tune to sing. Chandrahara Sohira di Duni Gavni. Sing to the tune that this Dadi sang for this ballad. And in fact, Guru Nanak has said in Gurbani, "Hot Tadi Neech Jat ka." I'm a Tadi. And it says Neech Jat ka, of low caste, because Tadi in that hierarchy of musicians were of the lower status and lower caste. And of course, the Guru's making the statement that caste doesn't matter. I'm happy to be of lower caste. The Guru's making the statement that all musicians are fine, all genres of singing is fine, and all the social, breaking the social hierarchy. So yes, Tadi were there, and Tadi sing non-scriptural songs. So Shabbat Kirtan is scriptural song, and Tadi is non-scriptural song, ballads, or exegesis of Kirtan, history, etc., that poets compose and sing to tunes. And it's beautiful. This is the genre where Veer Ras, the heroic Ras, really comes forth and is infused in the congregation.
So picking up on that, Nahal Singh has a question related to your point that the musicality can change over time. And his point was, well, can the words also change? I mean, if the revelatory utterance is occurred not just in word but also in song, and if you're saying that the songs can change, could you imagine Gurbani sung in translation or in a different a different way of translating in the future than the more formal way it's translated now? You think the words can also change?
Thank you for that question. So of course, translations and singing in translation is just fine. I don't think the Guru wanted to limit the transmission and the spread of the word to just Gurbani. Having said that, Gurbani is very powerful. The original words are very powerful. And we do believe as a community that since the Guru canonized the words, the Guru chose to canonize Gurbani, right? The Guru did not choose to canonize musical sound, So there is a distinct difference there, And during the time of the Guru would have used, and whoever sang, those musical means that best reached the Sangat and best helped them to connect. And I think the Guru would be very happy. I can't imagine any of our Gurus saying, "Hey, you sang in that style? That's not okay." The Guru who said, "Koi bole Ram Ram, koi Khuda hai, koi seve Gosaiya, koi Allah hai." All paths are valid. You can pray to Allah, you can pray to Ram. Would that guru say, you know, you must sing in this way or that way? I don't think so. But the word itself, the guru said, I'm canonizing it. At the end of certain sections, it says should, that this has been, that is the stamp of approval that these words are canonized. So I think there's a distinct difference there from the guru itself.
So getting back to style of kirtan, Bhavinder Hassan says that Sikh youth are bored with old style kirtan, which many don't understand, and the deep meanings of words, since simple style would appeal to them more. What do you think of that?
I think that's beautiful. I think what the guru would not like is if we are judgmental of others. You know, if we say this is the only correct way and all of you should do that. You know, if someone likes the old style, if they like the classical style, if they like particular instruments, that's fine. If someone likes a simpler style, that's fine. You know, diversity was the guru's way, you know, and inclusivity and equity and accessibility. You know, I often say that DEIA, these are buzzwords today in the academy and around us. But really, the Guru's project was DEIA, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So whatever is accessible to us, whatever makes the divine accessible to us, Vaheguru accessible to us, that is great.
There's just several comments of people who just enjoy the kirtan so much and appreciate your comments so much. But it's also a question about whether the presentation has to be in a religious context. You know, would you, like the Jaya sings, I mean, the beauty of the music is so rich. Can you imagine that being just kind of background music, or should it be in a very specific religious context?
Now, this is a great question. Now, of course, the power of the Bani and Kirtan in the Darbar setting is the most powerful. And it is the most powerful because that context helps us make that connection. And actually, I've written on this, and I call it the multi-sensorial affective ecology of Shabbat Kirtan. That it is multi-sensorial. We get the darshan of the Guru, the vision of the Guru. We do, you know, matha tek, we have prasad, and all our senses are enlivened, and it is affective. But remember that we have recording now, and in recording, it is played in the background. It's played while, you know, we are getting ready, while we are driving, while we are eating. So it has become, you know, it is in the background. Whether live kirtan should be played as a background, well, I've attended conferences, actually perhaps at Riverside itself, where no, it was not live, pardon me, that was recorded, which was being played while we were having the lunch. But whether live recording could be, a live performance could be in the background, you know, let me say, as someone who sings kirtan, I would not sing in that context. And for me also, to get in zone on the stage, concert stage, is very difficult. I remember many years ago at UC Berkeley and in the South Asian Studies, I sang kirtan at a program where Professor Christopher Shackle was speaking. And you know, sitting on stage, I just couldn't get into the zone. You know, for me, it is related to being in the Guru's presence, where there's Guru Granth Sahib, the Darbar, the congregation, even the fact that I have my head covered and everything, you know, it all adds to that connection. So this is a sensitive matter. I think as long as the intent is good, you know, I know that I think it was Bhaidya Singh who has been critiqued for actually playing in a sort of a bar setting in that kind of venue. So I think, you know, all of us should move with kind of regard for the sensitivities, you know. The Guru is so important and Gurbani is so important. So where we sing it, how we sing it, I think that sensitivity should be good. But the rigidity is also a problem because it limits, you know, the Guru's word from reaching elsewhere. And if we look at various traditions, their ability to kind of be more flexible and let their devotional music, go to different venues and in different ways has led to a greater knowledge of that culture. So I think a delicate balance is something that would be appropriate.
That's well put. I want to give a chance for you to play the AKG version of Kirtan, if you would like.
I would love that. Okay. So let me... So these are, these are all from different conference presentation. So here is a beautiful musician, Inderjit N Kaur, and the Sangat. Now, one thing that is really particular about the AKJ, somehow it goes back when I do that. Let me do this again. Okay, so yeah, one thing that is really distinctive about this style is that the musicians sit with the Sangat. They don't sit on the stage or separately, and the Sangat is considered to be part of the ensemble, and that gives that vibrancy and intensity. So let's listen here. It starts softly.
Shabbat ravaiya, ras rasal ras, Shabad ravaiya, har ke rang rata man gaave, har ke rang rata man gaave, har ke rang
So here what we see is that call and response with the Sangat. We see the repetition and we see how the Vaheguru chanting is brought in. Now we see how softly and slowly it starts. So let me play a few clips that shows how the intensity builds up. And that is really the powerful part of this style. So, I presented this at a conference where I was talking about Ras and about Amrit and how, the Shabbat, sorry, I went ahead of myself here. And in this clip, I want to show Veer Ras and how the Sangat is so connected now. And there is this evocation of the Char Sahibzade, the four sons of Guru Gobind Singh who were martyred, and the intensity that flows in here. It's a beautifully done here. So, these are the ways to instill the Sangat with that feeling. And actually, Mark, before I leave this, I would like to show this 20-second clip of how children get inculcated. Watch the little child here. So you can see, how that little child is distracted with his phone video game, but how that Vaiguru Simran just draws the child in, and how this child's, heart, mind, soul, body is infused with that affect, with that love.
But just wonderful to see. All of these clips are wonderful. And are these all your own pictures? Were you there for that occasion? Did you take this yourself? Actually,
I was there, but I took their YouTube posting because it was much better quality, and they had the wide angle camera. And so I used clips from that, and I'm in touch with them to get actually permission from them to use this in an article that I'm writing, and which will be published in the Oxford Handbook of Phenomenological Ethnomusicology, which is on the phenomenology of Ras. And that's why you would see all these clips were about Ras, right? That we have to drink the Ras, the divine Ras, the Vaiguru Har Ras, the Ram Ras, and incorporate it into the body, and that's how we get Veer Ras, and we flow into this mode of action and mode of courage and fearlessness. So I'm hoping to get permission to use this for that piece to be uploaded onto the Oxford University Press's website.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this, because, showing these clips, just proves the point that you're making, that words in themselves are not sufficient. You have to hear the sound, you have to hear the Sangeet, you have to hear the whole, context in which words come, including the words of a scholar. So it was wonderful to see these styles that you talk about, and to see how much you appreciate each of them in their own way. And I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. I kind of go with you. I love the classical sounds, just so beautiful. But I can also see how the light sound version is just so much a part of everyday life and culture, and how the kind of almost jazz intensity of the AKJ version could have its own appeal. So what a treat to hear this, as well as hear you talk about them.
Yeah, what is important to remember is that it's the everyday Sikh that is going to take the tradition forward and the culture forward. Sikhi will survive not because, of minority group amongst them or because of scholars, but the Sangat at large, the community. And so, the community practice and what they do, the community is very intelligent. The community knows, what it is doing. And so all these innovations, these ways of bringing the community together in Sangat and to the Guru, I think should not be devalued by any scholar. I feel just so honored to be connected to the community. None of my work is just my own thinking sitting in the ivory tower. For every work, I go out and meet people in the community and talk to them and get the knowledge from them, and then create my sort of add on these Western theories that we are expected to add, as scholars in the Western Academy, and then write, my papers. So
Well,
I would like to really again thank the community, for all that.
Well, and thank you. Those are wonderful words to conclude on. There's still other questions, and maybe you could respond to them offline. But clearly, you touched a button, and there's a kind of a chord, to use that musical term, of resonance in each of us to what you've said and what you've shown us. And it was such a pleasure to see how rich this aspect of Sikh studies can be. So Inderjit N Kaur, thank you so much for being our guest today and talking to us about your work and how you see this fitting into the broader understanding of Sikh studies as a field. So thank you so much for what you've shared.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.